Hello, welcome back to another episode of the Element and Architecture podcast. Now, following that episode about Le Corbusier, today in this episode, we are going to be discussing Ludwig Mies van der Rohe, who, along with Le Corbusier, is one of the most esteemed architects of the 20th century. And, unlike Le Corbusier, Mies was not nearly as controversial in his architectural designs and ideologies. Based on my interpretation, his quote, "less is more," is not a reflection of his minimalist tendencies, but rather it's proof of how much Mies can do and how elegant he can make things look with just very little. The eternality of Mies' influence is reflected from the endurance of a reinterpretation of modernist architecture, which he was famously known for pioneering. Now, Mies' most celebrated works is the Barcelona Pavilion, which is originally constructed for the 1929 International Exposition in Barcelona, Spain. The Barcelona Pavilion stands as a testament to Mies' ability to create spaces that may not be of the greatest scale, but rather resembles a form that is both serene and visually striking, epitomizing a new form of modernist architecture. At the same time, we'll be going through how the design ideologies he employed in designing the pavilion is also extended to his design of the Seagram building in New York. Now, in this episode, we will be deeply discussing Mies van der Rohe's personal experience, the social context, and how they both influence Mies' groundbreaking design philosophies. And then we'll be exploring how his design philosophies are then reflected in his hallmark works, like the Barcelona Pavilion and the Seagram building. So Mies' architectural career began when he worked at Peter Behrens' studio in Germany. And within the 3 years he worked there, he discovered the movement of Prussian architect Schinkel, specifically Schinkel's innovative neoclassicist style seen in his works like the Konzerthaus in Berlin, which demonstrated a revival, or rather a reinterpretation of ancient Greek architecture. These buildings you see in modern-day Berlin would be a reflection of this artistic market that was dominated by Behrens' studio. When I say these buildings, I mean these very classy-looking buildings that exist today in Germany, especially Berlin. And so most of Mies' works were greatly influenced by these elegant neoclassical forms by Schinkel, which Mies thought to be the architecture for an ideal urban environment. Another influence came from Mies' experience with Hendrik Perlich, who was a Dutch architect. And he induced Mies' tendency for architectural and structural integrity, or in other words, an emphasis on structure in his architectural designs. Such emphasis on structure would eventually be another key influence in Mies' design, as we will see in the later two examples of his hallmark works. The turn in Mies' architecture career, however, really occurred during and after World War I, when the rise of democratic nation of Weimar Republic, which was Germany at the time, brought about a new wave of modernist artistic and architectural trend. And Mies recognized the dramatic changes in the architectural climate from Behrens' classical style to a much more of a modernist design paradigm. And so as a result, Mies quickly adopted a new internationalized modernism created by Bauhaus, and Bauhaus, which was a German art school established in Germany, and Mies would later on adopt features like rectilinear forms in his architectural designs that were characteristic of modernist or Bauhaus architecture at the time. So the first culmination of Mies's architectural career came from his design of the Barcelona Pavilion, which he was commissioned to design after World War I. The pavilion's layout is based on a horizontal centrifugal organization that is developed by Mies, and the facade consists of individual units of flat planar glass walls that are separated individually and connected by steel vertical columns. As a result, the visual formed are a series of columns and freely formed walls supporting the low and flat roof structure, defining the building. Now, the placement of the 8 cruciform columns that supports the entirety of the flat roof structure of the pavilion is based on a formulaic grid system developed by Mies. And it serves as a framework for the patterning of the travertines, which was a major material that is used in the Barcelona Pavilion, and it also serves as a framework for the patterning of the set of walls that defines the volume of the building. And the composition of the columns, the composition of the 8 cruciform columns gives the building a sense as if the roof is almost floating above the volume of the building, which allows for an open plan on the interior, almost feeling as if it's an open interior. The utilization of a grid pattern as the planning of the layout of the building to define the columns of the structure, along with the selection of more traditional materials like travertine and marble as pavers of the pavilion. These two elements are a clear allusion to the characteristics of Schinkel's neoclassicist architectural style that really emphasizes a sense of structural formality. And so we tend to see the influence of Schinkel's neoclassical or neoclassicist style on the Barcelona Pavilion. Now, this also serves the spatial organization of the building well, where we see sort of a blurred sense of the exterior and interior space in the architecture due to the low projecting roof and the openness of its volume. This sort of blur between exterior and interior presents a striking visual effect that sort of redefines the sense of modernity that people were used to at the time. Meanwhile, at the same time, the presence of a general rectilinear form with low flat roof structure and the grid-placed layout suggests more of a Bauhaus or general modernist influence that's characteristic for the strict geometry that we see in the Barcelona Pavilion. And hence we begin to see that the pavilion is a sort of a fusion between the neoclassical style and the modernist style, both representative of Mies's major influence as an architect. However, the true architectural elegance of the pavilion from an aesthetic standpoint comes from the combination of materials that work perfectly together in this building. The pavilion makes use of various materials such as marble, steel, chrome, and green glass that synthesize a blend of different colors and textures. We can see certain almost illusory surfaces brought by certain placements and material properties within the volume. For instance, the use of green glass screens creates mirrored counterparts of the main boundary planes. And these sort of imaginary planes covered in green polished marble also reflect the main features of the chrome vertical rods used to fix the glass, and thereby creating a sense of elegance derived from the illusory texture created as a result. And so we see that the Barcelona Pavilion is not just a perfect or an epitome of Mies's fusion of influences from both neoclassical style and modern style. But we also see that this building is elegant in a way that is unseen before. It's a type of modernist elegance with the special combination of materials. It's everything from its structure to its rectilinear form. Everything just makes this building a pioneering work almost. And while Barcelona Pavilion is one of Mies' hallmark works, we can also see how he extended his architectural career by going beyond and taking on some high-rise projects like the Seagram building, which is another one of Mies' hallmark architectural works. The Seagram building similarly uses the grid-type layout and major columns structurally defining the building like the pavilion does. And that we know is a major element that is derived also from Mies' neoclassical influence, which emphasizes the idea of structure. And this is also seen in his influence from the Dutch architect Perlich, which really gave Mies the idea of structurality as a major element in the building. The facade of the building, however, in the Seagram building is particularly interesting. Being completely covered in grids of floor-to-ceiling gray topaz glass, it aesthetically appeals as a rather simple gridded glass skyscraper and merely seems like an extension of his pavilion architecture, which is also composed of the grid-type glass panel. We just get the sense of an aggregation of a unit glass panel in both of these architectural works. However, the Seagram building is much more than that, because it consists of thin bronze beams on the facade used to separate individual glass panels and almost looks as if it's part of the structure of the building. And despite being non-structural in fact and mere ornamentations on the facade of the building, it is actually intentionally used to convey the general structure of the skyscraper within. This is a sort of a representation of the exact structure this building is built from. This intentional presentation of the structure of the skyscraper is a reflection of Mies' influence from Perlich, that is the idea that form follows function, and that function includes the structural elements that make the building stand. And so we see this emphasis on structure again in this skyscraper. The overhanging roof at the entrance of the Seagram building is supported with the major columns that serves to create a blur between the interior and exterior space, which we can also see from the pavilion as well, and serve to demonstrate Mies' obsession with creating a demarcation between interior and exterior as his architectural ideology, even, I would say. This building, although seemingly unimportant in the vast span of the New York skyline, it actually became a prototype for future skyscraper creation, with Mies' very innovative use of glass to constitute the facade and also the beams that links between the individual pieces. And so this building was very influential and was used as a prototype. Unpacking what we talked about today, Mies van der Rohe's Barcelona Pavilion and Seagram building has illuminated the profound impact of his architectural philosophy on modernist design. The Barcelona Pavilion, with its elegance and highly innovative use of materials, exemplifies Mies' commitment to both classicalism, and modernism, which he was influenced by. Meanwhile, the Seagram building, on the other hand, stands as a testament to his mastery of structural clarity, reshaping the New York skyline as an example for future skyscrapers. But yeah, one thing I forgot to talk about was the idea that beams, non-structural beams, are exposed from the outside. That's a major feature that influenced a lot of other skyscrapers that we see as well, such as maybe in the Twin Towers or and other skyscrapers in New York as well. Personally, together these masterpieces demonstrate Mies van der Rohe's visionary approach to leaving sort of an indelible mark on the world of architecture. Personally, looking at Mies's works, what I see is that he is a father of architectural elegance. Everything from the material choice that we see in the Barcelona Pavilion, using materials like marble and travertine, which is unseen in any other architectural works before at this time period. Everything from a material choice to the fusion between tradition and modernism in his works, with his fusion of influences such as neoclassicalism and modernism. And this fusion worked together so well to create something that is truly elegant in its form and its texture as well. And that is it for today's episode. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye.